It's time!
What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin' Fights. I'm so pumped for this one. I'm Keith, joined as always by my friend and co-host Tom. Tom, how are you today?
Doing good. Weird. When we went live, I got these error messages from Twitter. Looks like we're not live on Twitter. I got to go do some technical research and some IT stuff about that. But either way, you know that we are going to be, and we are live right now on YouTube. If you're watching this and it's not live, well, we're here. And we're going to be on Spotify. So make sure you go check us out over there. Of course, as always, with every week of the UFC, Men of Order is your place to go and get all of our pick and fights content in one convenient spot. So make sure you're following Men of Order as well. I think there's some talks about a Men of Order sports section separate from the other. I don't know if that's coming to fruition or not, but it definitely there's some chatter going on.
Yeah, that would be pretty smart because we got a lot of guys putting out good quality content week by week over there. Like we've got us doing our UFC stuff. That's where we compile everything for you. And then you've got Adam doing football, Chad doing football, and our guys over here at Pickin' Winners collaborating with Men of Order week by week, and we really like working with them. So make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to this channel and our Spotify as well, guys. If you're watching right now, leave some comments. Like this is a big meat and potatoes card of the year, so leave some comments if you got questions or you got picks of your own. We will show it on the screen and we'll respond to it. And also make sure that you follow us on Twitter @_ Pickin' Winners. That's for the full team. That's typically, without the technical difficulties today, that's typically where things get tweeted out from. It happens, but @ Pickin' Winners on Instagram and Twitter to get notified when we're going live, get updates about everything like that. And as well as our personal Twitters. I'm @PickinKeith and Tom is @PickinFightsTom. Those are both under our handsome faces if you're watching on YouTube. So this card, UFC 280. I'm so pumped for this one. The main event is it's one that everybody's been talking about for so long. A lot of speculation about it. You had Charles miss weight against Justin Gaethje, and then is he the number one contender? Is Islam Makhachev going to fight Beneil Dariush for the belt? All this crazy stuff going on months and months. But finally, the dust is settled. We've got Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev with potential special guest sitting in the front row, Alexander Volkanovski, the backup for this one, which also could lead to a great fight. We'll have to come back and revisit this if that's the case, because that deserves a whole other video if that happens. But
well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm really interested that they allowed Volkanovski to go and do that. First and foremost, because both of the guys that we're talking about have weight cut issues historically. Khabib is a guy who's how many fights did he have to get canceled because of weight cut issues? I think we're in like the 4 to 6 range off the top of my head. Right. So maybe Islam Makhachev has got that dialed in, but you're always going to be a little bit concerned when you have your Dagestani guys and the wrestlers who like to pack on a lot of weight and then cut it a lot. And then you have Oliveira, who over time has gained more muscle mass, and he's shown a lot better at 55 than he did at 45. But at the end of the day, the half-pound miss, I don't even know. Would that disqualify him if he came in a half-pound over because it's a title fight? Like he couldn't win the belt, and then only Makhachev could win it, and then he would just win and kind of be in the same idle position that he's in. I don't even know how that would work. I know championship bouts, right? But I don't even know. I don't even know how that would work. So it's good that they have Alexander Volkanovski waiting in the wings, ready. A guy who's traditionally 45 and can make 45 and hasn't had any weight cut issues. Shockingly, he should have no problem at 55. So I would be almost more excited to see, what would happen, especially with the shakeup there. But I don't know. This either way, those 3 guys, I would love to see all 3 of them somehow do a round robin and see who comes out the best. And right now, Volk, pound for pound guy. Any card is better with him on it. However, this card is fire on its own.
Right. Real quick, just about Volk too. No weight cut issues fighting at 145. We all know, former pro rugby player, fought all the way up at welterweight, has wanted to go to lightweight and challenge for the belt for quite some time now. This actually bodes really well for him doing that in the future, because the last guy that I can remember that was a high-profile name that wasn't already on the card and was waiting in the wings in case something happened to the title fight was the last time around at Abu Dhabi. You had Michael Chandler before he had even stepped into the UFC octagon to fight Dan Hooker, I believe like 2-3 cards later. But Mike Chandler was waiting in the wings in case either Justin Gaethje or Habib went down in that card, weight cut issues, whatever. So funny comment from Adam Conte real quick. Volk may be tough, but he was no match for the century egg. That century egg, that giant 100-year-old egg that he tried to crack, that was great. Great reference, great callback. But yeah, so bodes really well for Volk. Volk may be able to step in, or he might be the next guy up. He might fight Islam Makhachev or Charles Oliveira after this card is all said and done. So we'll kick this one off, as we always do, with our prelim notables / locks. I've got 3 of them. I'll give one, and then I'll bounce it back over to Tom. I mean, it's safe to say, though, every fight on this card is a prelim notable. These prelims they're stacked from top to bottom with great fighters from the eastern region of the world. You've got Russia, its surrounding nations, and the Middle East. They're all heavily represented here, and it makes sense because this card does take place in Abu Dhabi. There's a heavy Russian presence there, especially with Islam Makhachev being in the main event. And not unlike the UK card or the Paris card earlier this year, they were stacked with fighters from those places. They also had fights that heavily favored those fighters too. This card does as well. And a lot of the fights here have, like those hometown favorite fighters. A few of them are lopsided. So I tried to find some with the best value that I could get out of the prelims. And number 1 for that for me is Armen Petrosyan. He's fighting AJ Dobson. And Armen Petrosyan is a legit kickboxing threat in the UFC. He achieved a UFC contract with a single fight. He ended by devastating head kick, knockout in the Contender Series. Edged out a split decision win over Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez, who we've talked about a lot here. Mm-hmm. That was a true 15-minute war. And Armen Petrosyan showed that he really could take one and give 2 solid ones back, especially against a tough guy like RoboCop. And one, his most recent fight, Petrosyan, he lost to another newcomer who's also on this card on the prelims, Caio Baralo. But Baralo is on another level, in terms of these new middleweights that have come up through the Contender Series. I'm going to talk about him a little bit later because he can do it all. But Caio Baralo out-grappled Petrosyan, and Petrosyan is not a grappler whatsoever. AJ Dobson, he's another newcomer out of the Contender Series. That's who Armen Petrosyan's fighting this week, and he doesn't look as sharp on his feet as Armen. In his Contender Series fight, he was leaving his chin out very high, swinging super wildly. He won his Contender Series fight by submission, but that was one after, a nice knockdown, but one where he's just swinging for the fences, chin high, chin out. He easily could have been knocked out himself. Jumped in for a rear naked choke, which intelligent, shows flashes of high fight IQ rather than going down for the ground and pound. But I don't think he's going to be knocking down Armen Petrosyan this week. One thing that AJ Dobson likes to try and do is clinch, right? And in Armen Petrosyan's Contender Series fight, we saw him get clinched up against the cage. It was a little bit tough for him, but he showed heart, got out of that. AJ Dobson doesn't really secure it well. It's more of a Muay Thai clinch. He doesn't really back opponents up to the cage. Granted, we haven't really seen a lot from AJ Dobson in the UFC, but he does have a lot of flaws in his game that Armen can expose, particularly that high open chin. I mean, I think that's just an easy target for Armen Petrosyan to hit. And to beat Armen Petrosyan, you need to be an extremely proficient grappler or wrestler, hold him down for 15 solid minutes. If Armen Petrosyan gets up and gets free against one of those guys, which he did in his Contender Series fight, it's pretty much game over for them. And against a guy like AJ Dobson that can't do that and has so many flaws in his stand-up game to begin with and is a little bit more of a wild man than anything else, as opposed to Armen Petrosyan, who's a bit more measured, he seriously has the potential to get put to sleep by Petrosyan. So I'm rolling with Armen Petrosyan as my prelim. This is a genuine prelim lock for me, not just a prelim notable. And I actually like him to get it done by knockout, maybe a late knockout in the 3rd round. So, Tom, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I like Armand Petrosian a lot, and I like Kyle Baralo a little bit more looking at their last fight. I mean, Armand Petrosian, he's a striker and Muay Thai guy by trade. He's very good at striking. He's quick. He has accurate shots. He has strong leg kicks and very good forward pressure. He can fight off the back foot, but, obviously he's going to be better when applying that pressure. He mixes his kicks very well, his knees, his elbows. He utilizes really every offensive weapon that he has in good mixture, never really allowing his opponent to know what he's going to come and throw next. He had shown really, he has good takedown defense. Kai Baralo, like you said, is just on another level when it comes to that grappling. But Petrosian has shown really, really good job at being able to fight off that rear naked choke, having Kai Baralo on his back for, I think it was the first 2 rounds of their fight. So with that being said, like you said, AJ Dobson, he got that submission win in his Dana White Contender Series debut. But that was after throwing wild punches. The guy dropped down, was stunned anyway, and he was able to sync up that submission. I don't think that's going to happen for Armand Petrosian. I know AJ Dobson, he's going to have a little bit of a reach advantage here, but Petrosian really has long legs for his size. I think he's going to be able to use that kind of immobilize AJ Dobson to a certain degree, going at the legs, going at the shins, going at the thighs, immobilize him, and then he's able to really use those straight punches. Like you said, AJ Dobson keeps his head high. And I think that's going to be able for Petrosian to tee off on. So I like what you said. 2nd round KO for Armand Petrosian.
Nice. All right, give us one of your prelim notables.
So I'm going to have to go with a bout between 2 strong grapplers, Omar Godziev and Abubakar Nurmagomedov. You would think after this such a famous name that I'd be able to say it by now, but with all the consonants and the M's and the O's and the V's and the D's, I got it mixed up. Either way, both of these guys, really, really strong grapplers, not so strong when it comes to the feet. I don't think either of them are going to be able to have a strong advantage in any particular area enough to get the fight finished. So for that reason, my prelim notable by prelim lock is to take this one to go the distance.
I like that. That's another good pick. So I'll give another one of mine. And this is my final picking a fighter individual, prelim notable lock. This is actually another lock for me. And it's someone that we just mentioned, someone that we just spoke about. And that is Caio Baralo. And this guy can truly do it all. He can stand with proficient kickboxers, and he can do it on the ground against really good jiu-jitsu players and wrestlers. The important thing about Caio Baralo, though, is that he's extremely intelligent. He doesn't just look like a nerd in his Tapology photo. He really is a smart guy. And he knows that when he's in the octagon with a good stand-up fighter, he shouldn't stand and try and trade with them. And the reverse for when he faces grapplers. For example, he did stand with a guy that you just mentioned, really good grappler, Omar Godziev, stood with him, made him look a little bit silly on his feet. There was a little bit of controversy in that fight. I think he made Omar Godziev really uncomfortable. And Godzie started calling for crotch strikes and things like that. But Baralo got in there again against Armand Petrosian, my other prelim lock. Just talked about how good of a kickboxer he is. And Baralo held him down for 15 minutes, where Petrosian had no answers for him there. So this week he fights Mahmoud Muradov, and Muradov comes off of a bad loss to GM3, Gerald Mearshart. Muradov really does struggle with proficient jiu-jitsu players, especially guys who transition positions and lock up things really, really fast. That was a 1st round submission loss to GM3. A lot of Muradov's fights, or his wins are, really good striking decisions or knockouts. But against a guy like Baralo, it doesn't really bode well for him, because Muradov is good on his feet, but Baralo is highly skilled on the ground, where Muradov does lack. I expect Caio Baralo to use that intelligently once again and either smother Muradov, maybe eke out not even eke out, get a very solid decision win, or lock something up and win by submission. What do you think about that one, Senor Tom?
Yeah, I love it. I couldn't have said it better myself. But here goes nothing. Kai Baralo, like you said, he is a high IQ fighter. He is somebody who I think, yeah, I forget who the announcer was, but they were saying that, he is a guy who calls himself a nerd. And I think he put together a team. He's Brazilian, right? So he put together a team of guys from Brazil to work on their grappling and their striking and their overall MMA. And he called them the Nerd Assassins or something to that effect. So this is a guy who takes pride in that kind of nerd mentality. But coming in and looking at his past few fights, I mean, Baralo against Omar Godziev. That was a fight that a lot of people, especially standing at 5'9" for Baralo, expected Omar Godziev to go out there and out grapple him. And Baralo basically took him down and beat him at his own game to the point where Godziev was getting frustrated, didn't know what to do, and was complaining about a lot of different things that were probably insignificant, and he probably wouldn't have complained about had he been winning the fight to that point. And then, like you said, Baralo going after Arman Tsarukyan in their fight, he had shown an ability to stand on the feet. It wasn't like he was getting dominated on the feet, but used a good opportune leg kick to transition from the single to the double and ultimately take down Arman Tsarukyan. He, even up against the fence, he was able to climb to the back and really make Tsarukyan uncomfortable. And then Tsarukyan showed good defense by being able to get up and back to his feet. But a lot of the time, it just was a real showing for Baralo to go out there and showcase that his grappling and his jiu-jitsu, especially when it comes to MMA, is on another level at this 185-pound division. And, kind of back to Arman Tsarukyan for a little bit, it showed that, with us being so impressed with Baralo that, not just anybody's going to take out Tsarukyan. He's a striker, he's a kickboxer, and he's going to be able to keep that fight standing against 95% of guys. Baralo is that 5%. And for that reason, I like Baralo a lot here. But he's taking on a guy in Mahmoud Muradov, who is no slouch himself. But, coming off of that loss to Gerald Meerschaert, he has shown that he has and I think a lot of people expected Mahmoud Muradov to be better on the ground than he did because of the last name and because of the abundance of consonants there. But that being said, I think Mahmoud Muradov does have a slight deficiency when it comes to the ground game, at least compared to his striking. And Baralo is going to have every opportunity to be able to take him down and out grapple him. I mean, we saw once GM3, in GM3 did get touched a little bit in that fight early on. I think he was a very, very big underdog, GM3, coming into that fight with Mahmoud Muradov. Either way, I just think when GM3 climbed on his back, was able to get there and submit him in his first real attempt with the grappling game, I think Baralo is going to potentially have a field day here and really solidify himself as one of the mainstays and one of the top contenders at the 185-pound division in the UFC.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think Baralo, the ceiling is the roof, in the words of Michael. I almost said Michael Jackson. In the words of Michael Jordan, it's limitless potential for him because he really can do it all. And now that he's in the UFC, he's only going to have better people approaching him and trying to get him to train with them. And it's limitless potential for Baralo. He's legit. And he kind of looks like he could be Paulo Costa's like little brother or cousin.
Yeah.
But with glasses.
He's got a sick neck tattoo. Yeah. Like the thing about the neck tattoo is you got to be able to back that up, right? If you're a badass and you got a neck tattoo, that just heightens that that badassness. But when you have a neck tattoo and you suck, it's like sad to see. Baralo seems like he's the real deal, and I think this weekend is when he really solidifies that. Do you have any more prelim notables? Was that?
I have one more. Okay. Do you have any more?
I have two more. I'm going to go with, and this is one that he is a major favorite, so I'm going to try and make this bet a little bit more enticing for us. But I'm going to go with Makhachev over to come in over Malcolm Gordon. No disrespect to Malcolm X Gordon, but he is a striker by trade. And Makhachev is a guy out of the UK who is shown to have tremendous grappling ability and acumen. And I think Malcolm Gordon is going to be definitely overmatched here. And I think this fight is going to end up on the ground sooner rather than later, probably within the first minute. And I like Makhachev to lock up a win here. So I lock up a submission and get it done. So I would do Makhachev by submission. Potentially Makhachev by submission in the first is what we're looking at for a juicy line here. Or depending on what the fight, what the over-under is on the odds, maybe Makhachev by submission under 1.5 rounds. Try and make that line a little bit more enticing for you because I think when we're recording this right now, it's like minus 600 for Muhammad Makhachev. So trying to do a little bit of magic on that one. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, I like the pick a lot. Muhammad Makhachev, I mean, he's the real deal. It is funny that he's been on the UK card because he lives in the UK and now he's on the Abu Dhabi card. He's got worldwide
Best
fans.
of both worlds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, my dad is Jewish. I am Catholic, but somebody very smart once told me, hey, play to your strengths. Depending on who you're around, maybe you're Jewish, maybe you're Catholic. It's all about just kind of utilizing what you have at your disposal. So good on Makhachev.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you know, it's just cool to see him like be a hometown favorite in a couple of different regions in the world. Definitely like a bit of a fan of his. I didn't like all the smack talk that he was talking about Paddy the Baddy after, because I mean, if you know, I'm a big Paddy Pimblett fan. But all that aside, I like Muhammad Makhachev, especially in this fight. The grappling is absolutely legitimate. It's surreal. And again, another guy that the potential is limitless, and that's why he's on this card. So my next and final prelim lock. This is a lock for me. Honestly, so are the other two picks, Petrosian and Baralo, but this is a lock as well. And that is Belal Muhammad and Sean Brady to go the distance. Belal and Sean are guys that like to get on top of their opponents. They like to let the clock tick. Neither really see fights finish within the distance. Sean Brady's a little bit more aggressive, though, and has a couple of UFC subs. So, and I'm personally pulling for him here because I think anytime Belal Muhammad steps into the octagon, it instantly becomes a snooze fest. But I think the very safe bet here, due to the way that these men fight, is for the match to go the distance. Belal Muhammad is doing everything to try and build hype for his career and for this fight in particular. And it's probably the one that I'm least likely to watch. I find his style very boring. Sean Brady has been in some entertaining fights, but none are really barn burners. So, and you know, while some of you out there may enjoy this style of fighting, you know, maybe you guys are real like wrestling, you know, aficionados out there. It's not so much for me when a guy like Belal Muhammad likes to sit near full guard and just like, you know, basically swim freestyle with his punches. So, you know, if this is for you, great. I'm going to add this to my bet slip. And while it's on, just before the main card, I'm probably going to get up, grab a beer, and socialize at the Fight Watch party. I like the pick, though, to go the distance. It'll be a good 15 minutes to get up and talk to people that you haven't seen in a while. What do you think about this one, Tom?
Yeah, this one, listen, I like Sean Brady a lot. And I think Sean Brady has
I'm pulling for him here.
You know, limitless potential, and I don't really like Belal Muhammad. Sean Brady coming in at 15-0. He had a really, really tough fight in his most recent bout with Michael Chiesa, but he just showed against a grappler that, you know, he can outdo Michael Chiesa at the thing that Michael Chiesa does best. Now, he leaves a little bit to be desired. He was getting hit a little bit by Michael Chiesa in the stand-up there, but ultimately, Belal Muhammad isn't even the level of striker that I would give Michael Chiesa. He's a decent striker, but, you know, in that area, Belal Muhammad leaves a lot to be desired. He does a great job of switching stances, getting people to move side to side, and then mixing the takedown in. So he's creative in how he gets the fight to the ground, even if somebody has good takedown defense himself. He has insane takedown defense, especially balancing on his single leg. You know, if you know, somebody goes and grabs it, transitions to the single leg and pulls it up and tries to pick it over his head, he has really, really good ability to stay balancing on that single leg, and he has really good flexibility in his hips and in his hamstrings to be able to keep that fight standing. So that may end up being a little bit of a problem for Sean Brady, but at the end of the day, both of these guys may want to bring the fight to the ground. If they do, I want to give the slight edge to Sean Brady. This is a guy who in Fury grappling, he beat Craig Jones, and Craig Jones famously of now Austin B Team, previously on the Danaher Death Squad. That's really big for me. You're talking about a grappling matchup, which is what you're going to have with Belal Muhammad. You're beating guys like Craig Jones in pure grappling. That gives you a big tick in your column when you're trying to decide the fight. Also, Sean Brady is a guy who is extremely strong, built like a Ninja Turtle. He's got that shell, which is really good for having, you know, when you have the strong back and you have that turtle-like shell, it means your squeeze and your hold is really, really good. In fact, when he was fighting Michael Chiesa actually turned around and looked and goes, wow, Paul Felder was right. You're strong. And this is, of course, Sean Brady has a great relationship with Paul Felder. Paul Felder has a great relationship with Michael Chiesa. So these guys are all friends. What was that?
Philly boys.
Exactly. But, you know, I think Sean Brady is a guy who everyone needs to be concerned about fighting. And I think Belal Muhammad is a guy that everyone's concerned about fighting, not because they're going to lose, but they're concerned because they're like, damn, nobody's going to watch my fight because this guy is so unlikable and boring. Belal Muhammad, like I said, able to control Luque a couple of times on the ground. But, Luque was able to Luque lost that fight mainly because he didn't have the control. And that's the way that a lot of Belal Muhammad's fights go. He goes and he fights for control, whereas Sean Brady goes and he gets the control, but then he tries to beat you up. And I think Sean Brady has a little bit better of a stand-up too. So I like Brady over Belal by decision. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like that a lot, and it really fits in well with my fight to go the distance pick as well. If you're rolling with him to win by decision, I'll stick with it to win by or to go the distance as well because I think that Belal Muhammad, he likes to settle into positions, and they're positions that maybe sometimes his opponents can't really move him out of. So I give him that slight edge there. But Sean Brady, the way that he moves on the ground is impeccable. It's incredible. I
think Sean Brady is going to be by far the best. Should I say the bestest? All right, how do I say this? He's going to be the best, the strongest, and the most in the prime grappler that Belal Muhammad has fought. Obviously fighting Damian Maia, right? A 43-year-old Damian Maia went to decision. And, Belal Muhammad showed that he had some competency there. But you're talking about a 43-year-old Damian Maia. Still going to have some strength there, but it's not going to be the strength of a 29-year-old Sean Brady, right? 29-year-old Sean Brady, almost 30, entering his prime. Listen, and here's the other thing, too, that I think is the big differentiator. You have Belal Muhammad, who gets in somebody's guard or takes them down and has them up against the fence with his shoulder and is landing these one meaningless shots like he did against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Whereas Sean Brady is the guy who's going to take you down, get on your back, and be threatening the rear naked choke and throwing some punches to the body, throwing to the face a couple of times there. So those are more damaging punches for sure. And then obviously that's the more impactful position, being on somebody's back. And just like Aljo, Sean Brady, I think to a certain degree, you could compare him to being the 170-pound Aljamain Sterling with the way he gets on the back and stays on the back. So I'm really excited for Sean Brady.
Yeah, that's what Aljo calls himself, is the human backpack. And I think it fits a little bit better with him because he's tiny. Like you could actually walk around with Aljo on your back if he wasn't trying to choke you out. But yeah, I mean, I said it too. Like, I think Sean Brady is the more aggressive man, which counts a lot. But just the way that Belal Muhammad's career is trending right now, and he seems to like win even when everybody doesn't want him to. So that's why I'm just gonna stick. Personally, I like your pick a lot. I said it. Sean Brady is the far more aggressive man, stronger guy. But I'm gonna stick with it straight up to win by decision, to go the distance. But I do like the Sean Brady pick a lot. He's the man that I'm pulling for out of the two of these guys. So you got one more prelim lock for us? Was that your last one?
That was my last one, but just one quick thing. If Aljamain Sterling is the human backpack, then that must make Sean Brady the human air tank or fire tank or whatever. You know what firemen wear on their back? That's fucking 50 pounds. That's what Sean Brady is, because he's fucking heavy as shit and strong as shit, and you don't want him anywhere near your back. I think I would take Aljo Sterling on my back versus Sean Brady, because if Sean Brady got my back, my legs would probably give out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You could definitely walk around with Aljo hanging off you. All right. So that concludes our prelim notables. We're going to kick it on up to the main card now. And this starts off with Manon Fiero versus Caitlyn Chukagian. I'm going with the underdog here. I think Caitlyn Chukagian, she's the ultimate gatekeeper. She's like the boss fight in a video game before you go on to face the final boss. The final boss of the women's flyweight division being Valentina Shevchenko. But at plus 160, I'm willing to throw in on Caitlyn Chukagian, because even though she's the underdog in this fight, I think she's a good bet here because she has the experience and the skills to beat most opponents before they go on to fight Valentina for gold. If you really do want to step in there against Ball Valentina, there's the ones that win against Caitlyn Chukagian are the ones that typically do the best despite still being beaten. Like you have Jessica Andrade, who beat Caitlyn Chukagian in the past. And Caitlyn Chukagian's really only lost to high-level competition like Jessica Andrade. I think Jessica when she was like kind of decent. And Valentina. I'm not sure if Manon Fiero is that, where she's ready to go up and fight Valentina Shevchenko just yet. I think Caitlyn maintains her distance really well with good kickboxing. She doesn't try to get too cute or flashy. Just it's the fundamentals. It's like old school basketball. You go for the one hand up, other leg up, layup, and that's basically Caitlyn Chukagian's style of fighting. She's good defensively. I think she'll eke out a pretty good decision this weekend. It won't be a barn burner, but it will be an entertaining women's kickboxing match. I like the respect that the UFC is showing to Caitlyn Chukagian as well, because this is a woman who she's going for gold. She's had the number one contender spot, or the number one ranked spot in the women's flyweight division for quite some time now, and hardly ever fights for the belt, despite pretty much everyone they put up against her, she beats. So, I like the respect that they're showing to blonde fighter this week. And I like her to win by a decision. What do you think about that one, Tom?
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going with Manon Fiorot to win by decision. So I guess maybe your safe bet here would be that the fight goes to decision. It's probably going to be in the minus because it's a women's fight. But at the end of the day, Manon Fiorot has finishing power that I don't think Caitlyn Chukagian has. Manon Fiorot is a very, very good boxer, MMA boxer, and shown that ability to finish inside of the UFC. Caitlyn Chukagian is a type of fighter who's shown a little bit of grappling prowess, but is ultimately the fighter who is going to maintain on the outside, use the height and the reach advantage as she typically has in these 125 pound bouts. I mean, 5'9", 125 pounds, 68-inch reach. Typically, she's going to be able to use her kickboxing and point style of fighting to maintain on the outside, land good body kicks, and eke out decisions. Whereas Manon Fiorot, I think she's someone who is a little bit more of a boxer, is kind of not inept, adept at getting in on the inside and being able to land some shots. Like I said, she's got the edge when it comes to power, and I think when it comes to boxing, she's got the edge, and I don't think she's going to allow Caitlyn to kind of stay on the outside of the octagon and just land some shots and ultimately pepper up to a decision. So I like that, and I also like if this happens to go to the ground. Manon Fiorot is sneaky good on the ground here, and I'm going to give her the edge in that regard as well. I don't think that she's going to be able to lock up a submission. That's not really her game, and it's not her MO, but I like the amount of volume that she comes. I like the power that she has against Caitlyn Chukagian, and I like her overall drive. Not that great of competition, ultimately. I mean, looking at, Jennifer Maia, looking at Mayra Bueno Silva is actually not a bad win. That's about a year ago. Tabitha Ritchie got KO Tabitha Ritchie from punches. So she's definitely, and before that, Victoria Leonardo, she knocked her out with a head kick and transition to punches on the ground. So Manon Fiorot, nicknamed the Beast, sitting at minus 190 favorite here. I like her to get the win here. I like her to get the decision, but if you have the money, I would maybe sprinkle a little bit on a Fiero by finish. I think that one has a strong potential here. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying with the finishing power. One more point I want to make also, just, in Caitlyn Chukagian's potential favor, is she did call out Manon Fiorot almost like a year ago now. She said that French chick can get it. And that was her main call out. And Caitlyn Chukagian is at the point in her career where, like, she doesn't have to fight. Well, actually, she kind of does have to fight lower ranked fighters because she is the number one ranked flyweight outside of the champ. But I think she saw something in Manon Fiorot that maybe, with the head of steam that Fiorot has climbing up the division, maybe a blonde fighter just knows that this would be a good fight, or she saw something in her game that she could eke out a win. So still rolling with Caitlyn Chukagian, but I respect the Manon Fiorot decision pick, as well as sprinkling a little bit on her to win by finish. That's just not my cup of tea this week. So next up, we've got Beneil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot. And this is a big fight. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm super excited for this one. And that's because I'm a big Benny D fan. I'm a little bit biased here. And, I kind of hate it because I think Mateusz Gamrot it's more than likely he's going to win. But with that being said, because I think Gamrot's going to win, I'm also going to do a self-fade, right? Like every now and then I have these picks where I'm like, oh, this guy is like so destined to win that it's unlikely that he does. And I think that Gamrot will win this matchup for reasons that I'm sure Tom's going to state in a little bit. But I think the people have forgotten about Benny Dariush because he's been gone for like over a year now. but I haven't forgotten Beneil. I haven't forgotten the Beneil that he has a true warrior's heart and really forced his way up the lightweight rankings when nobody wanted him there. Because let's be honest, he's not like the most marketable guy. He's a nice guy. He gives friendly, funny, post-fight interviews. He's always very friendly with the competition. But he's been in so many fights and really wars that weren't going his way and found a way to win them in entertaining fashion. And Gamrot has a lot going for him here, but while I think he's more likely to win, I'm still going to roll with Beneil Dariush because I want Beneil to win almost as bad as he wants himself to win. And when Beneil Dariush really wants to win, he does tend to find a way. He's tough as nails. I know that logic didn't make as much sense, but it's one of those ones where it's like everyone thinks Mateusz Gamrot's going to get it done here, and they forgot about Dre. They forgot about Beneil. The people just forgot, and he can do it in all realms. He's a crazy good stand-up. Well, not crazy good, but when he lands shots, they're powerful, and he lands them right on the chin. And he's super good on the ground. He's super good with his submissions. And Gamrot does a lot of the same things very, very well. But also, just like rule of averages, I think Ali Abdelaziz has to have one fighter on the main card win, this weekend. And I don't want to spoil my main event pick, but that's all I'm going to say. I think this is going to be Ali Abdelaziz's one fighter on the main card that wins this weekend. So, Tom, tell us why you think Mateusz Gamrot is going to be the guy this week.
Well, ultimately, I just watched his fight against Armin
Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan?
Armin Tsarukyan, his most recent fight, and that was a super, super tough, close battle that those two guys had. They basically are step for step in every area. Tsarukyan a little bit more active with the kicks, and then Mateusz a little bit better when it comes to being on the ground and getting the back. But ultimately, Tsarukyan is very good there as well. I think Beneil Dariush, looking back at his fight against Drakkar Klose, his win there, he was stunned and was just lucky that Drakkar Klose had dropped the right hand, and then it allowed Benny D to get in there with the left hand and really put him out. So I think that Mateusz Gamrot is a lot more controlled on the feet, so he's not going to give Beneil the opportunity or the openings to land like a power punch that he did against Drakkar Klose. And then when it comes to the ground, I know Beneil Dariush has that sneaky ground game. He's got that sneaky jiu-jitsu that was so good against Tony Ferguson, but ultimately we've seen the shell of himself that Tony Ferguson has turned into since that fight. And we're talking about a fight that was a year and a half ago that Beneil has been out for. Hopefully got his Tesla since then for his family, and he's definitely a family guy, but when you look at Beneil Dariush for what he's good at versus Mateusz Gamrot and what he is good at, I think there isn't a single category where Beneil Dariush beats Mateusz Gamrot. I think both of them are adept on the ground, but I'm going to have to give it to the stronger Mateusz Gamrot, the more active, not settling for any positions whatsoever against Tsarukyan. So I like Mateusz Gamrot on the ground. I like Mateusz Gamrot on the feet. I think he's quicker. I think he's has more power. And, I think he's ultimately more controlled. And as the fight goes on, I think you start to see more and more of Mateusz. And not that Beneil Dariush is the guy who's going to come out there and electrify and set the world on fire. I like Mateusz Gamrot for all of those reasons. I think he's a better guy. And my last point against Beneil, and it's not really against Beneil, but, he's been out for a year and a half. His last two fights are Drakkar Klose, which he won because he knocked out Drakkar Klose on wobbly legs after he was trying to submit him in the first round. He was a backpack for the entire first round and got some jello-y legs. And Joe Rogan was talking about how Beneil Dariush could potentially be in trouble. And that's not necessarily the caliber of guy that you want to be in trouble against, Drakkar Klose, if you're going to be at the top 3, 4, 5 of the division. So he was able to find a way to get that done, and then he goes and he fights Tony Ferguson, was just a shell of himself. Still couldn't even finish him there. I don't want to say still couldn't. I'm sure Beneil Dariush had a impact on the decline that we've seen in Tony Ferguson and the damage that Tony Ferguson had during that fight. But with all of that being said, I think Beneil Dariush in the last year and a half, the caliber of opponent that's going to enter the top 5 is higher than what Beneil is. And he's stayed that high so far in the rankings because he hasn't fought anybody. And I think this is where Mateusz goes up there. He's going to steal Benny Dariush's number 5, and I think we really start to see Mateusz Gamrot and also Arman Tsarukyan, come back up even after that very, very close loss to Gamrot. I think we see both of those guys starting to get back in the top part of the lightweight division, and I like Mateusz Gamrot here. I don't think he's going to be able to finish Beneil because Beneil does have that good ground game, so I'm taking Gamrot by decision.
Yeah, I respect it. I definitely respect it. Like I said, I think it's more likely on paper that Gamrot gets it done here, but Beneil Dariush, sneaky good. You said it yourself, sneaky good. In a lot of different aspects. I mean, I would like to see another spinning back fist knockout for Beneil Dariush. I think that would be pretty cool. All right, next up, we've got Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley, and this one's crazy. This is, basically, not that I'm not looking forward to Caitlyn Chukagian and Manon Fiero, but like that fight up is just bananas. This one is going to be nuts. Petr Yan taking a big risk here, going down in rankings to fight Sean O'Malley. And Sean O'Malley, last I saw, was a plus 300 favorite, which, sometimes I talk about the guys that I work with, and the guys at work, they know these names, right? They know, I talk about my friend from work that calls Hamzat Kismov. They know the names, right? They know the Michael Chandlers of the world. They know the Charles Oliveira, and they know Sean O'Malley. And when I was talking about this at work the other day, one of the guys was like, wait, Sean O'Malley's a plus 300 favorite. He's an underdog. I thought he was like this big time stud. Like, well, you follow it a little bit more closely. He's been built up like that to the public eye. And he has quite a reputation at this point, when in reality, Sean O'Malley has not fought anybody, in the upper echelon of this bantamweight division. And now is his opportunity to get it done against a guy who just fought for the belt, or tried to defend the belt. We know the story behind Petr Yan, but anyways, he's stepping up there to fight him, and crazy fight, because Sean O'Malley, despite being a plus 300 underdog, I think he actually has like a little bit of potential here. If not to get a win in the octagon, he'll at least get a moral victory coming out, as long as he doesn't perform like absolute dog shit. Which we don't know because he hasn't fought anybody this good. But I think there are a few things going for Sean O'Malley here. He has extremely long reach for this division, and he's one of the few guys that actually knows how to use it. And out of the guys that Petr Yan's fought, only Corey Sandhagen had a reach like Sean O'Malley, and he doesn't really know how to use it as well as Sean O'Malley does. Sean O'Malley really knows how to like stay on the outside and just stick that jab over and over again, constantly move back, and we've seen him do it time and time again. Petr Yan does move a little bit differently than Sean O'Malley's previous opponents. But there's a lot of interesting factors here with Sean O'Malley. He's more creative than anybody Petr Yan's really fought in terms of on his feet. Sandhagen might have been a good like prototype for Petr Yan to fight, to prepare for Sean O'Malley, because Corey Sandhagen does do a lot of crazy things himself, those flying knees. And, ultimately though, Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley hasn't fought anybody I think that'll have prepared him for Petr Yan. The closest thing that he has to him is maybe Chito Vera in his history, and that was when Chito wasn't really the guy that he is now. I think Petr Yan is going to be a little bit too much for Sean O'Malley. He can take Sean O'Malley down if he wants to, because while Petr Yan isn't, he's a great boxer. He's one of the best boxers in the UFC. He probably has that slightly better ground game in terms of experience and just training. What did you say?
Slightly better ground game? I think he probably has a significantly better ground game.
Yeah.
Because go ahead.
We haven't seen Sean really.
That's true.
So, and there's been a lot of talks about him training heavy wrestling over his past couple of fights because he's been expecting somebody to take him down. You don't even see it in his training videos. So, like, I don't know if maybe he's trying to hide if he's good. This is just one of those unknowns about Sean O'Malley. But, ultimately, I think Petr Yan has the edge. He's fought more guys that are like Sean O'Malley than Sean O'Malley's fought guys that are like Petr Yan. And, we just have to see what the game plan of both of these men is going to be. I'm sure Sean O'Malley is going to try and stay to the outside, remain very far away from Petr Yan, stick those jabs, keep the distance going. And Petr Yan is going to try and close the distance very fast, land a lot of things to the body, move up to the head, and then level change and go for a takedown. Sean O'Malley does have the potential, if he can maintain that distance, to win by decision. I don't think he's going to win by knockout, which I think is what a lot of very, very casual fans are going to take him as. All this is to say that Sean O'Malley does have a chance. He's not as out of this fight as everybody thinks, but Petr Yan ultimately is going to get the victory, in my opinion. Probably going to do it by decision, but it would be something to see if Sean O'Malley got it, because the jump in the rankings would be huge. So I'm rolling with Petr Yan here. Sean O'Malley does have a chance, though. What do you got for us, Tom?
Listen, Sean O'Malley has shown a weakness when it comes to his legs. He gets kicked a lot in the legs, and I know we talked a little bit about Petr Yan and his good boxing, but he can also throw some leg kicks in there, and he can change it up. It's going to be a little bit difficult with Sean O'Malley having a 5.5-inch reach advantage and being, I think, 3 or 4 inches taller than Petr Yan. But at the end of the day, sometimes that reach advantage or that height, should I say, can backfire at you, because ultimately it leaves your chin a little bit more exposed. Whereas reading the shorter guy, those punches have to come down in order to hit your chin. You could, use the hands a little bit better. When you're taller, those punches are coming up and they're right at the chin. So that could be a potential issue there. And then you also have Sean O'Malley, who, is a guy who's typically had those ankle issues in the past. So it's interesting to see how those leg kicks and how they're going to accumulate and how they're going to affect Sean O'Malley's movement in and around the octagon, and how able he is to be able to stay on the outside. I think what you're ultimately going to see is from Petr Yan being very measured and calculated in his approach. I think Sean O'Malley is going to go in there with high confidence, as he always does, and he may land some quick shots early because of just how fast he is when it comes to his striking. But I think ultimately Petr Yan is going to be able to, slip some of those, land some good leg kicks in the first, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sean O'Malley maybe comes out of that first round, or maybe in the first 2 or 3 minutes, having some good success on Petr Yan. But I think Petr Yan, those leg kicks are going to accumulate. I think ultimately he's going to be able to get on the inside and eventually take down Sean O'Malley. The problem when you have all of that length when it comes to grappling, now jiu-jitsu, it can be helpful to have that length, because length and flexibility can allow you to wrap up submissions. But I don't think Sean O'Malley is going to go out there and be able to submit Petr Yan when Aljamain Sterling couldn't. And Petr Yan has a style of grappling that's much more wrestling heavy, that's dependent on strength. And when you're longer and wiry, that sometimes can be a disadvantage when it comes to that type of matchup. So I like Petr Yan a lot when it comes to the ground game. I think he's going to be able to have that lower center of gravity, that tight squeeze on the body of Sean O'Malley, and be able to have him on the ground and control him on the ground, even if he doesn't finish him there. I think this is going to be a very heavy ground and pound style of fight for Petr Yan after the about halfway mark in the first round. And I think ultimately because of that, we're going to see maybe a 29-28. I could see Petr Yan maybe potentially dropping that first round, but a 29-28 or a 30-27 decision for Petr Yan. I'm looking at Tapology right now, and 50% of the votes on Petr Yan are for him to finish by KO, TKO, and then the other 40-ish% is on the decision. 80% of the overall votes between the two fighters are going to Petr Yan, and that's where I'm going to ultimately line up to. I'm going to go Petr Yan by decision here. I don't think that Sean O'Malley is going to go out there and finish Petr. If he does, that is a huge feather in the cap. But unfortunately, I think we may see Sean O'Malley take a little bit of the Kevin Holland route here, where he's a fantastic fighter on the feet, supremely entertaining, but when it comes to that grappler style of opponent, he doesn't have an answer because of that length and the wiriness. So it's going to be interesting to see what Sean O'Malley does here. Absolutely, he always has a chance with that. The technique of striking that he has, that precision and that speed, and that ability to land a couple of times in a plethora of combinations. I just think Petr Yan has probably seen it a little bit already before, more than Sean O'Malley is. So he's experienced in that regard. And there's just more on the Petr Yan bet than on the Sean O'Malley side. So safer pick for me, Petr Yan by decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with your point about Petr Yan potentially giving up the first round too, because, we've seen he's the type of guy that likes to download things. And, he gave up that first round to Aljamain Sterling the last time around. I kind of argued against it, and then going back and watching it again, it's very clear that he's a lot more measured early on. Interesting.
He's a guy that likes to read his opponents and then calculate and then, come on later in the fight. And then that may actually end up being a disadvantage for him because it's a 3-round fight.
Right.
That's something that for me actually leans a little bit into the Sean O'Malley corner, because he's going to come out and he's going to fire and he's going to be throwing a lot of different things that it may be going to be hard for Petr Yan to kind of tabulate and know where it's coming. So I think Sean O'Malley has a really good shot of winning that first round, if not at least the first minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes of the round. But once Petr Yan starts to diagnose and understand what he's doing and trying to do to him, after that point, I go Petr Yan. So maybe you can look at like Sean O'Malley first round finish, and then after that you take Petr Yan by decision. Maybe that's potentially a smart play, depending on, I know a lot of the big books, UFC is still kind of a blossoming sport, so you don't have the full litany of bets that maybe you would want to have on Sunday for the fight that's coming up on the following Saturday. So it's interesting to see how this ends up playing out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This is going to be a wild one, and Petr Yan has everything to lose as well. So the pressure is definitely on him, and flip side of that, where Petr Yan is measured and likes to sit back and watch a little bit. What if he comes out? He's thinking, I got to beat this guy, I got to beat him handedly. Everybody's talking a lot about him. It's 15 minutes this time around, and then we see a Petr Yan that comes out super aggressive, and Sean O'Malley somehow lands that shot. I mean, I don't know if Petr Yan's ever even been knocked out before, but and I don't see his chin being very weak. He's going into this one, he's got a historically strong chin. So there's a lot of questions here. I think Sean O'Malley, even if you throw, it's like your point about sprinkling a little bit on Manon and Fiero just because she has the chance to potentially finish Caitlyn Chukagian, there is that chance that Sean O'Malley gets something done in this fight. So I'm not totally out on him the way that a lot of other people are. And at the end of the day, if it goes to decision and he looks good, if it's a 29-28, it's still a moral victory for Sean O'Malley, jumping up this far in competition. Leave comments. Let us know what you think, you guys in here. All right, next up, we've got Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw. This is one that I'm a little bit more conflicted on because TJ Dillashaw has hands. He's got some of the craziest, highlights in the history of the sport and of this division. All the way back to beating Baralo, and Baralo was, I think, undefeated a couple of years ago and took that championship belt from him. Crazy head kick to end that fight. TJ Dillashaw is older now. He's not on the EPO at this point.
We don't know that.
Well, yeah, that's very true. He may be. We got to see how he looks going.
There was a picture that came out literally, I think it was like last night or something, of TJ Dillashaw where he looked really old. He looked his typical like vascular, like pre-fight, but everyone wants to point to, oh, look at all the bumps on his stomach and the lower areas. He's back on the juice, this and that, and who knows what that actually could be? It could have been beads of sweat in a grainy picture. It could have been just I don't even know. I know that there are reasons as to why a fighter may have bumps. I know that Kamaru Usman had went into, like, the bumps on his chest that everyone likes to point to are actually burn marks from or scars from burns that he has had to burn off, like some like warts or something or whatever, burned them off and then went back to grappling and then they turned into scars. So not everything is always what it appears, but yeah, I don't know. Who knows? TJ Dillashaw may be on the juice. And Aljamain Sterling did reply to that, being like, he may be on the juice or not. All I know, he's fit enough to get this ass whooping next week. So I don't know. Aljamain is really weird. He goes back and forth between being the heel and the face. And I don't know. He just took pictures with the Tate brothers too. So everyone's back to hating Aljamain Sterling again. It changes with the wind.
Yeah, he's annoying as fuck. I hate Aljamain Sterling. I don't hate him. Listen, do your thing, whatever. But the personality that he is fake half the time, fake villain. And then he's like, oh, why does everyone hate me? I'm such a good guy.
Yeah, true.
That shit is so annoying. It's like, dude, just pick a side. Either you want to be the bad guy or you want to be this guy that everybody likes and feels bad for. Just pick one. TJ Dillashaw is very clearly a villain all throughout his career. The Killishaw days at Team Alpha Male. I forget who it was that he kneed in the back of the head just out of anger. But TJ Dillashaw is a very clear villain, and Aljamain Sterling is a wishy-washy guy. I think TJ Dillashaw, at this point in his career, takes a lot of damage standing up. There was that fight against Corey Sandhagen where, a lot of people were saying that Corey Sandhagen was robbed. Aljamain Sterling is not as good of a stand-up fighter as Corey Sandhagen, but he has been coming in with, well, he did go in against Petr Yan with a good game plan. Switched up training from like Matt Serra, I believe he was with before out in Long Island. And I can't remember where he's at now, but, the game plan just looks a lot better for Aljamain Sterling. I'm sure he's going to have a good game plan to go in here against TJ Dillashaw with, who, he's going to try and walk Aljamain Sterling down. TJ Dillashaw is not as measured as Petr Yan was. I think, it's going to be a similar outcome against TJ Dillashaw as it was with Petr Yan, where it's going to be like 3 rounds to 2. TJ Dillashaw is going to land a lot of good shots in 2 of those rounds. And then the other 3, Aljamain Sterling is going to be riding on TJ Dillashaw's back. The wrestling of Aljamain Sterling is just way too good for the rest of this division right now, at least the guys at the upper echelon. So I don't think TJ Dillashaw is going to be the guy that gets it done. But if he does, I mean, despite all the bullshit about TJ Dillashaw being on EPO and steroids and everything, I'd much rather see him as a champion than I would Aljamain Sterling, because Aljamain Sterling is annoying as fuck. And at least TJ Dillashaw, who the bad guy is. That's my personal opinion. What do you think about this one, Tom?
I go the other way. I kind of find Aljamain Sterling and his dual personalities as like interesting. It's kind of like the Joker, where you never know what you're going to get from him. So I think that's kind of maybe what he could lean into a little bit more. Before we go into it a little bit more, or beyond that, just want to say what's up to Pat. Thanks, man. Top of the morning to you. Clearly you're on Sean O'Malley for that Irish little twang you added in your note there. So interesting from Addicted to Combat early pick. He's taking Sean O'Malley to get it done over Petr Yan. You heard it here first. As for this fight, Aljamain Sterling, I saw TJ Dillashaw had posted grappling and doing a couple of takedowns here and there, and people were like, wow, TJ looks great. He's gonna murder Aljamain. And I was like, yeah, I don't think TJ Dillashaw is going to be doing a whole lot of the taking down against Aljamain Sterling here. I mean, TJ Dillashaw, if he had his way, is probably going to keep this fight standing against the human backpack Aljo. And, we hadn't seen Petr Yan be in too many compromising positions on the ground until, the second and the third round of that most recent, that rematch fight. So I think Aljamain Sterling is coming here with high confidence. He's coming in here with a fresh neck. I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if I'm concerned or not about that neck surgery. It doesn't seem like Aljamain is. It doesn't seem like, and of course he would say this, that the UFC or his doctors are particularly concerned about that neck surgery and how it's going to hold up. But in terms of, him and his performance, I think that he's been able to get himself into really, really good shape. And he's been able to live a comfortable life, not being in pain with his neck, which I think can only improve the product you're going to see inside of the octagon on Saturday. TJ Dillashaw has been out of the ring for a while, and his most recent fight against Corey Sandhagen was really, really close. So for those reasons, I think Aljamain Sterling is going to go in there. I think he's going to find himself on TJ's back. And I think in very similar ways to how he won against Petr Yan, I think he's going to have a very similar showing, but it's going to be more it's going to be more clear that he's the winner here against TJ Dillashaw. I think TJ Dillashaw and Petr Yan are very, very similar fighters in a lot of ways. And because of that, Aljamain Sterling, and it's funny because Aljo was like, oh, I didn't want to fight the trilogy with Petr Yan because I've seen him so much. I wanted somebody different. Okay, so let me just pick basically the American Petr Yan. It's not really that much different, but either way, I like Aljamain Sterling a lot. I like his coach. I like after the second round, look at that motherfucker. Look at him, Aljo. I fucking love that. And if nothing else, if I don't like Aljo, I love his coaches, and it's from our part of the woods here, Keith. So I can't pick against him in that regard. I'm going Aljamain Sterling. I think he's going to get the decision. I don't know if he's going to finish TJ, but I would fucking love it if he did.
Super lock. Odds are pretty good going into this one too. Chookagian with the walk-off KO. Heard it here first. All right, so you were right. Yo, guys, check out Pat's YouTube channel down in the comments below. Great guy. We love talking to Pat. Gonna have him back on here soon. But TJ Dillashaw plus 145, Aljamain Sterling minus 170. I think those odds are pretty good for a super lock. Yeah, Ray Longo, that's his name. Great guy. Super lock minus 170, great odds. Especially you said you like it by decision too, right?
Yeah, I like it by decision. I don't know if Aljo's going to be able to finish TJ, but then again, we haven't seen TJ grappling prowess in quite some time here. And, against a guy like the human backpack who's going to be trying to choke you out for, the entirety of rounds at a time, Yeah, that absolutely could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely could. But I think the decision, I mean, I like the decision a lot there. 3 rounds to 2, if I could bet it exactly like that, that would be the way I would do it. But
And I mean, the odds are only -170 on Aljo, so like you don't even necessarily have to. I would maybe take like it depends on what they're thinking in terms of the rounds, but I mean, Aljamain Sterling over like 2.5 rounds, like
yeah,
give yourself a little bit more more leeway there.
yeah, you could do one that's like Aljamain to win by 3, 4, 5, or 4-5 or decision. Or a double chance bet, submission or decision.
You know what I've been liking a lot lately? It's like like Aljo to win by decision. If there's a finish, it's a no bet. You know what I mean? And you can take that in your sub or something, and either way, you're getting your money back, but you're winning the other way. So
yeah,
it's not super heavy, but it's a safer bet, I think, for this fight.
I'm the sucker that puts down like a double chance, like to win by submission or decision, and then somehow Aljamain Sterling
knocks him out.
Yeah,
that's probably a good bet too. I mean, I don't see Aljo knocking out TJ, but then watch that's what's going to happen. And then we're like, wow, Aljo has power now.
I think it's more likely TJ Dillashaw wins than Aljamain Sterling knocks him out. But
probably,
yeah. So the main event. Oh my God, I could literally I could bust, dude. I could bust. This is fucking incredible. I'm so excited for this one. Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev, Charlie Olives. I'm saying it right now. I'm rolling with Charles Oliveira here. Say what you want. We're going to have some Islam Khabib stands in the comments. They're going to be hitting us up on Twitter. They're going to be annoying as fuck this week, as they always are. Oh, Khabib's the GOAT. Khabib's the GOAT. Well, what is Islam? And listen, I could rant and rave about it all day, but some serious points I'm going to make. Charles Oliveira. Justin Gaethje, when Charles Oliveira punched him in the face and knocked Justin Gaethje down, Justin Gaethje said it's the hardest he's been hit in the UFC. And
he felt it in his toes.
Yeah, he said he felt like he licked a battery and was shocked by electricity. I'm pretty sure those were the exact words. Charles Oliveira has power in his hands. Everybody's scared to go to the ground with Charles Oliveira, except the guy that he's going to be fighting this week. And Islam Makhachev says, well, Charles Oliveira, I'm going to get on top of him and I'm going to beat him that way. Islam said that about Charles. Well, Charles
Oliveira, going to ride him like a horse, I believe, is what he said.
Well, Charles Oliveira said, Charles said, I'll start the fight on my back if that's what you want. Charles Oliveira is that confident in his full guard, right? And he knows, and he said this too, that Islam, his team, Ali, they're all super, super arrogant. I think Charles Oliveira, despite being the champion in everybody's hearts, he still fights with the underdog mentality because he has so many losses. Guys use that against him. Like, oh, he quit against Paul Felder. He gave up against this guy. Charles Oliveira is at a point in his career now where he's tasted that victory, but he still has like that not loser mindset, but he's the underdog, every time he steps into the octagon. He said he's going to shock the world. He knows that this is really he has more to prove here and Islam has more to lose. Just being that Islam has this legacy and, a lot of the world is counting Charles out already. A lot of the world, but a lot of the bets are actually coming in on Charles at this point. Despite all that, I think Charles has so many different ways to win it. I think he could knock out Islam and he could submit Islam. I think it would be great if he knocked out Islam, who's already been knocked out in the past by, I can't even remember now. But anyways, Islam's been knocked out. He's not lossless in the way that Khabib was. So, all those stands out there can take that and smoke it. But
Adriano Martins.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. But Charles Oliveira, anyways, he can get it done all different ways. I think Islam, if he meets him on the ground, huge mistake for him. Sure, Islam has great defensive striking. That's like a statistic that his fans like to bring up all the time. That's because guys aren't really willing to engage with him that often because they know that the second they leave their hips open, they're going to get taken down. Charles Oliveira is not afraid of that. He's going to press forward. He's going to push the pace the whole time. Islam's not used to that whatsoever. He's used to guys sitting back and waiting to get taken down because they're all afraid of that wrestling. Charles Oliveira has no fear going into this one, and he wants to win. He's not like a lot of other champions that are going to sit back and make the guy come to him, despite Charles not really being the champion on paper at the moment. He just doesn't have that mindset. He pushes the pace. He's going to be too much for Islam Makhachev, and if he does go to the ground, Makhachev is going to make the mistake of jumping into his full guard And, you know, despite Islam having good submissions, in the past against guys like Dan Hooker and Bobby Green, right? That might have been submission, ground and pound, can't remember. But regardless, Islam might have that for him. Charles Oliveira is just so much better with this MMA geared up Brazilian jiu-jitsu that he's a true practitioner of. That was kind of like ranting and ravings of a madman, but Charles Oliveira he's my guy. I love Charles as much as you can love a man who came from, a completely different part of the world, doesn't speak the same language, that you've never met, and, you've just been watching him climb his way up the rankings. He's one of my favorite athletes in the world right now. So even if Islam Makhachev was a minus 6,000 favorite, I'd still be rolling with Charles Oliveira this weekend. But I think it's a very good pick. Charles Oliveira is the man. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I went into this conversation undecided, and I kind of did that purposefully to allow your argument and also just the overall general feeling and allow my gut to make the decision. And I think the champion has a name. It's Charles Oliveira. He's illuminated by God, and I think ultimately you said one thing that really stuck with me, and that is that Islam Makhachev, he's used to people fighting in a way that they have to be concerned with the takedown. And when he fights guys like Bobby Green on short notice, Bobby Green's concerned about the takedown and worried about the takedown, so that's going to absolutely take away from his stand-up and what he's willing to do and his aggressiveness. And Charles Oliveira isn't concerned about that. You could take him down, and then he's going to try and find a way out of it. So I think Charles Oliveira, I don't see Islam Makhachev being able to submit Charles Oliveira in any capacity, because I think Charlie Oliveira's jiu-jitsu and his strength too. He's gotten stronger throughout, being originally at 145, now up at 55 and having weight cut issues at 55. It's because of all the muscle mass that he's put on. So if he's able to have a good cut, now he's walking around with lions and he's got his blonde army behind him. And, he does have this air of confidence that he exudes. And I hope that that's for the best and it doesn't necessarily get to him. And that this is still, he has that underdog mentality that you talked about, Keith. But I think because of that, Islam is also has that air of confidence. But he's like, oh, you got submitted 7 times or you got finished 7 times. How can you call yourself, a champion? How can you call yourself best in the UFC? How can you call yourself a grappler? How could you call yourself any of these things when you've lost all of these different times? And I think Islam Makhachev and the Khabib team might have a little bit of conceitedness that's going in there, because you have to, no matter what happened in the past, you have to look at what happened recently, and the power in his hands that he can land on people is absolutely game changing, as you saw against Gaethje, as you saw against Chandler. Like, this is a guy who he can do it all now, and he's showing that he's only gotten better with age. And I don't think Islam Makhachev, now there's a very distinct possibility that Islam Makhachev takes Charles Oliveira down, or however it ends up happening, they end up on the ground, and Islam is able to use pressure and hold on to the waist and garner the more of the control time. But I just think Charles Oliveira is going to be so active, either from his back, on top, looking for submissions, looking for ways out, trying to land big shots, or even just get back to the feet and land big, hard, right overhands onto the chin of Islam Makhachev that we've seen in the past be chinked before. So I just think that there's a lot more ways that Charles Oliveira can get it done. And I just, I want to say it's a shame that he doesn't speak English, because he would be, he would probably be a bigger sensation. But I also think, like, it takes real skill and passion more than anything to speak a different language and still reach Americans and be like, wow, this guy is awesome. And for, when he was walking out of that tunnel, after beating Justin Gaethje, and the champion has a name, it's Charles Oliveira, I'm illuminated by God, and like all of the things that he said, it's like I get goosebumps just thinking about it, and it's not even in English. I don't know if that's ever happened with me before. He's one of the most exciting fighters inside of the UFC. If he wins this fight, I think it definitely catapults him into that GOAT status conversation. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think Volkanovski has some issues with Charles Oliveira too. And that's obviously no slight on Volkanovski. We're a big Volkanovski pro channel, but I have to pick Charles Oliveira just from mentally looking at how the fight could go, but then also in my heart, and then finally in my gut, and which was partially influenced by you there, Keith. So I'm going with Charles Oliveira.
Thank you. I 100% agree. The only things that worry me about this one is the fact that it's taking place in Abu Dhabi. And Charles has spoken about that himself, that he's a little bit nervous about doing this basically where Islam has like the home field advantage, because you never know. I mean, I genuinely believe the last time around, it was more scale issues than weight issues. I know that's like conspiracy take,
Right, good point.
but I think that was more scale issues than Charles missing weight. A lot of people out there disagree, and most of them are Islam Makachev fans or Charles haters. But you know, I think that that's something that people need to be worried about and wary of when betting Charles Oliveira and supporting Charles Oliveira going into this week. To your point about him not speaking English, I obviously recognize the fact that Charles Oliveira doesn't speak English, but I will never use that as a slight against him, and not saying that you did, but because that is something that Islam Makhachev, grasping at straws, speaking to media,
right,
over the past couple of months has been
he
like,
doesn't even speak English.
He
Shut
doesn't
up, dude.
you barely do too. I can only understand it at the time. And listen, sorry, you know, yeah, you got an accent, but whatever. That doesn't make you like the most proficient English speaker in the world either. If anything, Charles Oliveira doesn't speak English because he had a harder upbringing, and you can't not look at his story and say, wow, when it comes to Charles Oliveira. Just in case anybody watching this doesn't know, Charles Oliveira literally grew up in the favelas. Like if you played Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the favela was a map. That's like the huts made of, you know, basically like sheet metal in Brazil. More people die in Brazil every day than like almost anywhere else in the world. And, you know, he escaped all that. And yeah, you're right. To reach American fans not speaking English, seeing that story, seeing the things that he's overcome. He was told at 9 years old that he was never going to walk again. And, you know, all this is super relevant now for me because I basically just watched the Charles Oliveira documentary on YouTube. But it's all this stuff that you're like, how? You know, and he's here and he's doing it. He is illuminated by God. I have to agree with him there. I think Charles Oliveira gets it done, and he's going to make a lot of people in Abu Dhabi and, you know, in those eastern regions of the world, he's going to make them very, very upset Saturday night for them, Saturday afternoon for us here in, you know, the East Coast of America. But I got to roll with Charles Oliveira here.
Pat's being a troll.
Yeah. Listen, yo, Hasbulla is going to be in Islam's corner, allegedly, this week. Hasbulla had it tough, too. Is that not inspiring? What? Okay, sure. Yeah, he's had a tough life. I wouldn't want to have
Tough life.
Hasbulla has, you know, but no, I think Hasbulla, if he really is in Islam Makhachev's corner this week, that's like wasting a body because there's like a limit to how many people can be in your corner, right?
I would imagine there would be, right? You'd probably know more than 4 or 5 people.
Right.
Anybody, you know, watching and you know what the limit is, let us know. And if Hasbullah's, but would Hasbullah's count as a full cornerman?
Right. Maybe if they put Hasbulla and Abdu Rozik there, then
well, what they'll probably do is just you want to talk about the real human backpack? Yeah. You're gonna have Hasbulla just hanging on Khabib's back the whole time and be like, "What do you mean? This is my luggage. It's my carry-on.
Right. He's my hat. I'm not wearing the furry hat today. I'm wearing a human hat."
Yeah, I swear to God, it's just like I wonder if you could get away with like just putting Hasbulla as your carry-on, like if you're flying.
Yeah. Somewhere. No, what I really do want to see though from Hasbulla this weekend is when Charles Oliveira wins, for Charles Oliveira to pick up Hasbulla and punt him across the arena. Because I do like Hasbulla. Everybody that follows,
love Hasbulla.
I love Hasbulla. Yeah, but fuck the rest of that team.
Why is he? And what is the reasoning behind actually signing him to the UFC? Is that's just publicity?
It's gotta be. I think. I don't know. I mean, what are they gonna do? Like, yeah, that was a good one. I don't know what they're gonna do with Hasbulla. What the the career path for Hasbulla is there? Probably just spokesperson. I don't know. Maybe what they should do is put him on like the Russian commentating team. Although he doesn't even speak Russian. He speaks like some really rare like.
He sounds like Russian Elmo.
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel like we're gonna get canceled by somebody if I say this, but I feel like they should put him in like costumes. You know, like
they don't.
No, like I mean like actual costumes. Like yeah, put him in like an Elmo costume and like you know like a Stitch like Halloween costume and shit like that. Like, I think that would be hilarious.
He actually would be a really good Stitch. He honestly he would be like really like when they do those like fully animated things. If there was like no CGI, he would be probably one of the biggest actors of all time, being Stitch and being all these like Disney characters because he's the only one who could fit in the costume.
Oompa Loompas and Willy Wonka.
Yeah, swear to God.
Yeah. I give my left nut to meet Hasbulla. I give
He's the size of your left nut.
Yeah. And then we ride with the human backpack. Connor, I like your picks. I'm gonna roll with some of them for the NFL today, but we're rolling with Charles Oliveira here. We ride with the human backpack. He meant Aljamain Sterling. He didn't mean.
He meant
yeah. He didn't mean the real human backpack, as in Hasbulla. But yeah, I don't want to see Hasbulla hold gold. I want to see him cry. I want to see him like.
It probably sounds just like he talks anyway. Like his crying, the octaves that his voice hits when he's regularly talking. So he can't get any higher when he cries, right?
No,
like
I want to see like literal tears. Like I want to see him like actually crying.
I want to see Khabib's reaction when Charles wins.
I know, yeah, and that's the thing too. Is like now I know they say he won't, and but does Khabib come back? That's like the big question that a lot of people are asking.
I can't imagine that he would. I can't imagine. He promised his mom. He's turned down tons of money. I can't imagine that he. I can't imagine that he comes back.
Yeah. Well, with all that being said, smart picks as always, guys. Thanks again, Patrick. We love your channel. Looking forward to seeing what you got to say about this upcoming card. So we're gonna run down our picks as we always do. Prelim Notables, prelim locks. I'm going with Armen Petrosian against AJ Dobson. I'm going with Caio Baralo over Mahmoud Muradov. I'm actually going to parlay the two of those guys. They're both like minus 200 favorites. And then I'm going with Belal Muhammad and Sean Brady, their fight to go the distance. I'm going with, on the main card, I'm taking Caitlyn Chukagian, a blonde fighter. Self-fading myself, despite thinking that Matesh Gamrot is going to win. I'm going with Benny D, good old fan favorite of mine, Beneil Dariush. I'm going with Petr Yan in the fight against Sean O'Malley, but I have to agree with Pat here. I will sprinkle a little bit. This is one of those ones you can sprinkle a lot on, right? I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on Sean O'Malley to win it by KO. Sprinkle a little bit on Petr Yan to win by decision. But ultimately, I do think that the Petr Yan decision is more likely in this fight. I'm going with Aljamain Sterling to beat TJ Dillashaw, depending on who you talk to. But again, I'm Aljamain is my pick, but I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit on TJ Dillashaw too, to win by knockout, I believe. And then I'm going with Charles Oliveira to beat Islam Makhachev. That is the most confident I've ever felt about a title fight in my entire time doing picking fights, especially when one of the guys or the guy that I'm picking is an underdog. I love Charles Oliveira, if you couldn't pick up on that from before. Tom, what do you got for us by way of your prelim or your card?
Definitely nobody is mistaking you as a Charles hater. Starting at the bottom of the card, going all the way up, like Muhammad Makhachev over Malcolm Gordon by submission early. Armen Petrosian going to get it done over AJ Dobson. I like Abubakar Nurmagomedov and Omar Godziev to go the distance. We talked a little bit about Mahmoud Muradov taking on Caio Baralo, and I like Caio Baralo. It's going to be a tough fight for him, but he's had tough fights before, and he's shown that hey, he can out-grapple almost anybody out there. And Mahmoud Muradov really seemed to have a weakness against GM3 in the grappling. So I'm going with Caio Baralo. Going with Sean Brady. He's a more likable, more dominant, and overall better version of Belal Muhammad. He's going to take his number 5 ranking or whatever Belal Muhammad is now. He's going to take that, and Sean Brady's going to catapult himself into the top of the 170-pound division. Going on to the main card opening, Caitlyn Chukagian taking on Manon Fiorot. I like Manon Fiorot to get it done there. I think she's just a little bit of a better boxer, a little bit more scrappy, and I think she's got to prove herself. So I like Manon Fiorot to get it done there. Probably by decision, but maybe sprinkling a little bit on her getting Katlyn out of there. Beneil Dariush taking on Mateusz Gamrot. I think Gamrot is better at everything that Beneil Dariush does well, so I'm going with Mateusz Gamrot. He's going to be a contender in the 155-pound division, which is always stacked. at 135 pounds, I'm going to have to pick with Petr Yan getting the win over Sean O'Malley. But, Sean O'Malley, I think, has a good chance to win that first round, first few minutes. And, if he can win it handily, I think maybe he could potentially put Petr Yan away and shock the world. He seems surely super confident that he's going to be able to do that. But I think ultimately I'm going to feel a little bit more safer going with Petr Yan in the grappling decision. And then taking on Aljamain Sterling, the champion, is TJ Dillashaw, T-Cheat. Dillashaw, can't go with him for a variety of different reasons. Aljamain Sterling going to be Hasbulla, the human backpack on TJ Dillashaw, and I think he's going to get it done there. And then, like you, Keith, I'm going with Charles Oliveira over Islam Makhachev. I think there's just a far more variety of different ways that he can get it done than Islam, and it should be a great fight and a great card either way. So I'm definitely stoked and can't wait to watch.
Yeah, biggest pick for me this week, I think, in terms of what I stake, it might be Charles Oliveira to get it done by knockout. I think that might be it for me. I think it's going to be a big flash KO.
That would be awesome. That would send Abu Dhabi into an absolute frenzy. That would be nuts. But wouldn't it be even better if he submitted Islam? Beat you at your own game, bro.
It definitely would be. In terms of like what you could say back to the Islam fans, but I think to the safe way, and not that like knowing that you're going to knock somebody out is the safe way, but for Charles to keep it off the ground. I know he said he would start it on his back, but just he's way better on his feet. So flash KO like very early into the fight would be so sick. Like you don't even give Islam an opportunity to do what he wants to do with you.
Right.
Anyways, want to say thanks again to everyone that was here with us. Had some people popping in and out, leaving us some comments. We love that. Make sure you like the video. Keep commenting. We really appreciate that, and we love to talk to you when we're here. As well as please subscribe. Subscribing really helps us out on this channel. You have no idea. We got numbers we're trying to get those numbies. Now we got follow us on Twitter and Instagram at _PickinWinners, and as well as our personal handles. I'm at PickinKeith, and Tom is at PickinFightsTom over on Twitter. You can listen to us on Spotify. Catch us there if you can't watch a whole YouTube video or you can't stick around with us live. You want to listen in your car, Spotify is the place for you. Check out menoforder.com. That's where we compile all of our content for the week, give you a little bit of a taste of what we're doing, and then we add in our YouTube video as well as our Spotify. So thanks to everybody that stuck around for this. I mean, it went a lot longer than I think we expected it to, but it didn't feel that long.
Felt quick. It felt like we had a really good pace, and there's just a lot of good fights to talk about, and people chiming in. It was a lot of fun. Yeah,
time flies when you're having fun. I always have fun talking fights with you, Tom, and I look forward to going through this again on Sunday next week, and hopefully we're riding high off of this card. So thanks again, my friend. You take it easy.
Take it easy, brother.